For almost 500 years, from the 600s all the way to the Crusades, Jerusalem was under Muslim rule. But here's the thing. This wasn't just one long, unchanging chapter. Nope. It was a whole series of dramatic shifts that completely remade one of the world's most sacred and, let's face it, most contested cities.
So, to really get a grip on this era, you've got to see where it fits on the timeline. It kicks off right after centuries of Byzantine Christian rule, and it all comes to a screeching halt with the arrival of the European Crusaders. This 460-year period, it's basically the bridge between two totally different worlds. Right, so the real story here is all about transformation. It's about how a city's whole identity, its skyline, its people, got reshaped not just once but over and over again by different rulers who all had their own priorities. Okay, let's dive into this.
Our story starts in the year 638. The armies of the Rashidun Caliphate show up at the gates of Jerusalem. And just like that, centuries of Roman and Byzantine Christian control are over. A whole new era is beginning.
But this wasn't some brutal, violent sacking of the city. Actually, in a move that was pretty much unheard of for the time, the city's leader, Patriarch Sophronius, he negotiated a peaceful surrender. He just had one condition. He would only hand over the keys to the city to the Caliph, Umar, in person.
And the agreement they made? Well, for that time, it was remarkably lenient. Christians were guaranteed their safety, they could keep their property in churches, and they had the freedom to practice their religion. In return, they'd pay a poll tax called the jizya. These terms really set the stage for a kind of coexistence that would, for the most part, define the city for centuries. And right away, we see one of the most immediate and, frankly, profound changes. The Byzantines had enforced this 500-year-old ban that stopped Jews from living in Jerusalem. Well, Caliph Omar completely overturned it. He allowed 70 Jewish families to come back and reestablish a community inside the city walls. A huge shift.
Okay, let's jump to the next phase, the Umayyad dynasty. Now, their capital was in Damascus, which is pretty close by. And the Umayyads didn't just rule Jerusalem, they elevated it. They poured a ton of resources into making it this magnificent center of their empire. And their main focus was this one spot that had been deliberately neglected for centuries, the Temple Mount. See, under Byzantine rule, the place where the Jewish temples once stood was basically left as a garbage dump, a ruin. But the Umayyads, they looked at this huge, holy platform and saw the perfect canvas to build a new, sacred identity for the city. Now, this wasn't just construction, this was a statement. First, they cleared the whole site. Then, Caliph Abd al-Malik commissioned one of the world's truly great architectural masterpieces, the Dome of the Rock. Then came the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They even invested heavily in infrastructure, fixing up the roads connecting Jerusalem to the heart of their empire. I mean, these are the buildings that still define Jerusalem's skyline today. But, empires rise and fall. In 750, the Umayyads get overthrown by the Abbasids, and they move the capital of the Islamic world hundreds of miles away to Baghdad. So this kicks off a long period where Jerusalem is ruled from a distance, first from Iraq and later on from Egypt. And this created a really fascinating paradox, because while Jerusalem wasn't a political center anymore, its religious importance actually grew. It became this desirable place for faraway rulers to be buried, and its reputation as a holy city just got stronger and stronger, even as its strategic value kind of faded. As you can see, control of the city changed hands all the time between different dynasties in Baghdad and Cairo, and for the people living there, this meant life was a total roller coaster. You'd have these periods of stability and prosperity, but they were often followed by intense persecution and just chaos. The final and most chaotic chapter of this 460-year story starts in 1073. A new power invades from Central Asia, the Seljuk Turks, and their arrival just shatters the fragile balance that had existed in the region for a long time. The Seljuk period was just marked by constant instability. They were always fighting amongst themselves, which led to nonstop warfare. Persecution of the local Christian population got way worse, and, this is critical, they started blocking the pilgrimage routes for Christians traveling from Europe. After a local rebellion in 1077, the Seljuks retaliated by slaughtering 3,000 residents. It was a brutal time. So, news of this, of the persecution of a holy city in total turmoil, and especially of pilgrims being blocked from visiting, it sent absolute shockwaves across the Christian world in Europe. And it prompted a response on a scale that nobody could have imagined. So in 1095, at the Council of Clermont in France,
Pope Urban II gives this incredibly fiery sermon. He calls on the knights and the nobles of Europe to take up arms, march east, and reclaim Jerusalem. This was the moment that launched the First Crusade. And 4 years later, in the summer of 1099, that European army is standing right outside the walls of Jerusalem. After a siege, they break through the defenses, and just like that, 461 years of continuous Muslim rule come to a very sudden, very violent end. And the sheer violence of that ending was captured by an eyewitness, a chaplain with the army. He described the scene of conquerors just running through the streets, slaughtering almost everyone. It's just this horrific bookend, isn't it? An era that started with a peaceful, negotiated surrender ends in a total bloodbath. So the key takeaway here is that this 460-year period wasn't just one long, static block of time. It was a dynamic, multi-layered transformation. The city was remade from a provincial Byzantine town into this glorious Islamic capital, then into a remote holy site, before its story was just violently interrupted by the arrival of the Crusaders. Ultimately, this whole era is what created the physical and religious landscape of Jerusalem that we all recognize today. It's what established the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque as an iconic Islamic sanctuary, it reestablished a Jewish presence, and it absolutely set the stage for the conflicts that would follow. It really leaves us with a huge question. How did these centuries of change forever alter what it even means for this city to be holy?